It's time for Vivid Talk, a coaching conversation to cultivate your visionary lifestyle. I'm your host, Gwen Witherspoon, Better Life Coach. We use my proprietary Vivid model for growth and development to get us started, but it's not a real conversation without you. So join in. Visit vividtalkradio.com for details. We've got a great show for you today. Glad you're here. Welcome to Vivid Talk. I'm Gwen Witherspoon. Today's episode of Vivid Talk Radio is brought to you by Mogul Con, the #1 event where female corporate influencers and women-owned businesses come together. Before we get started, let me tell you how you can join the conversation. Post your comments on our blog, share in social media, or visit vividtalkradio.com to start a Coach on Call chat. Welcome to Vivid Talk. I'm Gwen Witherspoon, and I'm here today with Marcus Williams, one of my favorite people on the planet. Welcome, Marcus.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
I still have these great memories of you standing at my front door that first time with those Afro puffs. I just can't get that out of my mind.
Yes, my children don't believe that I had an Afro at this point. I didn't take any photos to prove it, so they don't believe me.
Well, I'm a witness, so I just need to come and let them know. Yeah, I actually saw it. So, introduce yourself to our audience. What have you been up to?
My name is Marcus Williams. I am a professional illustrator and comic book artist. I am based here in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been illustrating here for well over 17 years, and over the years I started working on freelance, everything from Cartoon Network, comic books, comic art. I remember doing business cards way back in the day. Fast forward, and all that taught me is that I need to have my own product. All of the illustration that I've ever done, you come up empty-handed and saying to yourself, well, what do I have to sell for myself? So I started creating my own content, poster art, illustrations, things like that, and eventually my own comic book that I actually co-produced with a friend of mine that I also have been working together with for about 17 years. So currently I'm independently operated comic artist who travels to a lot of comic conventions, elementary schools, and I try to show a different perspective that the entertainment industry won't show, which is showing young black teens, children, elementary kids that don't see it in TV, cartoons, video games, or movies, heroic representations of themselves. That's devoid of any tropes, any stereotypes. These are capable, powerful, and strong characterizations of who these children should see themselves as, but they're not getting that image anywhere else.
So where did this come from? How did you get to that point?
Oh, wow. That's a long question there. I guess to truncate.
We got the time. Go ahead.
Right. I guess to give the elevator version of 17 years of working in the industry, it didn't start that way. It didn't start that way because I was a young artist. I was just trying to get work, which is kind of the goal of every aspiring professional artist is to get a great resume, and to get work where it of course suits their talents and their skills and what excites them. So when my first freelance job professionally was a temporary, I think a 3-month position working for Cartoon Network, but it was just freelance. I didn't go to the building. I didn't work in the actual Turner building, but I received my work from them. I got to draw the Powerpuff Girls. It was very exciting. Very exciting. I was just getting out of high school. So
definitely exciting then.
Right, yeah. And fast forward, all of the stuff, everything from can you draw my character? Can you design my logo? Can you draw this T-shirt design? Have you ever did children's books? Things like that. All of that was just about getting the work, getting the money for it, paying my bills. But I didn't have that epiphany to say, what do I want to leave as my legacy as a creator? as a legacy of, me as an artist. There's an ocean of talented people all over the world, and they're brilliantly talented and skilled, and they can, render things vastly more detailed than I can. Some to the point where I wouldn't even want to try to copy them or even reach their level because it's too tedious. But like I said, I had my 2 children, and even then the responsibility was there to show them something, but it wasn't heavy on me just yet. I was happy showing them Sesame Street and, buying Sonic the Hedgehog comics, things like that. But the weight of actually saying, going to these comic conventions, when I started working on my first comic freelance-wise, it was a comic called Hero Cats of Stellar City. And I got to go to my first comic convention and sit behind the table, and I'm seeing these black families come up to the table, and they have their children, and they're excited to see me as a comic artist.
Wow.
Man, I know, you did this stuff. This is great, man. And they're kind of coaching their children to say, look, see, you guys can do this for a living. And so at the very first beginning of that, I guess this is, putting my foot in the door, I was the representation myself as an artist.
Yeah.
And their parents would say, look at that. Huh? You don't see that every day. So, but it dawned on me even further. The more conventions I went to, they would talk to me. The parents would talk and tell me their frustrations. It's like, man, I want to buy my kids some of this comic stuff, but, the females are over-sexualized. The males are, overly upset all the time. They're angry. They're violent. And I can't put that in front of my 3-year-old or my 6-year-old or my 10-year-old. I want to give them something positive. And I can't find it, Marcus. Can you, create some stuff? And I thought to myself, man, like, wow, that should be available. Right. And I'm like, well, I can draw. So then that's where, working with my business partner, Greg, we started talking. He did his children's book. I illustrated it back in 2013. That was his first, published children's book. There we got to go to Savannah's Children's Book Festival. And I mean, he sold ridiculous. He only brought, 55 books, and he sold he sold 50 of them. No one had ever heard of him before, but his entire children's book featured a black family. It was a story. It just featured black characters, a black family, and people acted like it was, this rare commodity, this thing, and we were both like, well, cool, all right.
Well, okay, that works.
That's fine. But it definitely set into our goals to say, well, we need to create more of this. We need to create more. And that's what's been happening for the past 3 years. I started doing Young Heroes, which is I'll take published superhero characters and I'll make them young. So you have Luke Cage, who's very popular on Netflix right now.
Yeah.
That was his very first television show that Marvel put on Netflix. And it did really, really well. Got a lot of acclaim. But again, it's not really a kid's show. So
right.
To put that character in front of children, it's not really appropriate. So I would make a young version of Luke Cage, and I would put that on a poster. Mm-hmm. And I did that for like 2 years and went to these comic conventions, and parents lost their minds. People online were like, oh, my goodness, where can I buy these? I need this all over my kid's room. And I'm still selling those posters that I did 2 years ago at comic conventions. I just went to last week. And it's still rare. It's still rare.
Well, it is exciting to start seeing Luke Cage, and now they got Black Panthers coming out. But you're right, there aren't any that are children that are age appropriate. So it's genius. Of course you would figure that out. I just remember you being so creative, like you were writing music and doing poetry and doing illustration, and so it's thrilling that you've kind of found this calling, in this way, because it's definitely something that's necessary. So how do kids respond?
I think that's the part that keeps me. And I know it may sound cliche or it may sound cheesy or, it may sound like what you're supposed to say,
Yeah.
but until you actually have a conversation with a kid who is in fourth grade or, who's in sixth, seventh grade, and they have their sketchbook in their hand, and they have your comic already, they have your poster, they show a picture of their wall at home, and they have 5 of your, posters already plastered on their wall, and their mom and dad are like, you are all he talks about. You as an artist, all he talks about. He wants to be just like you, and this kid is standing in front of you with wide, starry eyes and a sketchbook, giddy, saying, when's your birthday? We'll celebrate it at my house. My mom said we could. And I'm like, you serious?
What?
And this is, it's that's the part where, so we got our first award for our comics. It was the Glyph Awards. This was in Philadelphia. They hold it every year. And my what I said when we received our award was, listen, thank you so much. I appreciate it. The normal thing that you say when you win an award, right? But I had to be honest. I said, there is nothing that anyone could ever physically give me, not money, not awards, not a plaque, that can beat that experience, when a kid is completely convinced that you're the person they want, you're who they want to be like. I can't, there's nothing you can give me better than that. I was like, that's success for me.
Yeah, that's it.
So it's rare. I don't, if anybody, I don't think accountants usually get that feeling. I feel really, really, I feel very fortunate because of my craft that a child would want to aspire to do something similar to what I'm doing. And it is sad that, teachers get overlooked or, these other jobs that are important. They take a lot of work, a lot of education, a lot of dedication to get to. But my craft is a visual one. It's entertaining. It can be seen as entertaining or entertainment. So for that to happen at this point in my life, I'm not a millionaire. I don't I don't have any products in the store, or I'm not on TV, but that's amazing to me. So that right there is the greatest thing to me. That's what keeps me going. So that's my aspiration, to keep pushing it out. Is I've seen the effects on these kids. I've seen when I go to elementary schools, in Tuskegee Airs, I'll give you the elevator pitch, is a futuristic sci-fi action adventure comic set 80 years into the future from now. And it follows 5 young pilots, they're all black, that are being trained in secret by a descendant of the Tuskegee Airmen. He's training them to get them ready for this big war with this machine army that's going to be released on the planet. And the kids end up being the last line of defense for humanity because they're the only pilots that are in existence at this time. Man flight is illegal in the future. And their jets that they fly actually transform into giant robots. Okay, and so you have this sci-fi action adventure part that absolutely grabbed the kids' interest visually. They're like, oh, man, there's robots, giant robots. This is perfect.
Right, yeah, that's it.
Right,
Yes.
But what the Jedi mind trick that we built into the actual design of the characters, the pilots themselves, is the kids don't know they're looking at history. I designed their jackets to favor the Tuskegee Airmen. They have the actual pilot helmets and the goggles from back then as well, from World War II. The kids don't realize it. They don't know they're looking at history. And so until I actually present and say, hey, have you guys heard of the Tuskegee Airmen? And Gwen, out of 22 kids in these fourth grade classrooms, I went at the end of Black History Month just to be certain I didn't want to spoil it. So I'm like, have you guys heard of them? And out of all those kids, you may get one that said, I think I saw a movie about it.
Yeah.
And the rest of the kids are looking dumbfounded, like, no, who? Tuskegee
Who
what?
is that?
Right. But I asked them, would they watch a cartoon about the Tuskegee Airs, and they're like, when is it coming out? Is it going to be on Netflix? I'm like, I hope so. So the reaction every time they see the young heroes. I've donated posters to classrooms and schools, but the kids love seeing it. They don't know who the superheroes are a lot of times, especially the ones that are old school superheroes that are, they're being rewritten for a new audience today. But the kids don't know who, Vixen or Storm or Luke Cage or Black Panther. These stories are over 30 plus years old. Who they are, they're just like, it looks cool, I make it look like them, but they're drawn in by the visuals.
We're going to take a commercial break, and when we return, we'll continue our visionary profile of illustrator and comic artist Marcus Williams. Are you a female entrepreneur or ready to start your own business? Then we've got the answer for you. Mogul Con is the #1 event where female corporate influencers and women-owned businesses come together to engage, educate, and gain insight from over 20 experts that are the best in their industries. Learn about branding, digital marketing, business capital, and much more. Get your all-access pass at mogulcon.com. Invest in yourself today. Welcome back to Vivid Talk. I'm your host, Gwen Witherspoon, and we're returning for the second half of our visionary profile of illustrator and comic artist Marcus Williams.
So tell me, what's the biggest challenge about all of this?
The biggest challenge is keeping your energy high enough to actually go out and do this. Because 17 years ago, 10 plus years ago, Kickstarter didn't exist.
Right.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, those didn't exist, not to the level that they are now. So sharing and getting that energetic feedback helps constantly, fill you up with, okay, I think I'm doing the right thing. Thing. Going to the actual conventions and getting reactions from whole families that are like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Don't stop. I'll support you guys, all the way up until the end. Whatever you need, let us know. That kind of energy has to stay high. I think the worst feeling of all is not understanding the business of what you're trying to do. And so you put all of this energy into something, and then it falls flat because it's not going, it's not moving. You don't know how to get it in front of your audience, and your energy gets depleted because there's no refilling part. And that is where I'm lucky enough to say, after understanding how comics make money, how they can make money, how an artist can make a living at it, thankfully, it was in a means that keeps me filled. And hopefully you're not just doing it for the money. But like I said,
how did you figure that out?
I'll come up to you. I went up to people that have been in comics for over 20, 30 years, shook their hand, and treated them like a person. I didn't fan out. I didn't go crazy. Oh, my God, man, let me just take a selfie real quick. Just treated them like a person. And I asked them real-world questions like, man, tell me, how do you make a living at this? What did you do to succeed at Kickstarter? How many shows do you have to do a year? 30? How do you make a living? When you're doing that many shows, what about your family? Are you married? And they start laughing. And I'm like, no, seriously. Do you have like a relationship with a real woman that's okay with you? I asked as many questions as I could, and I'm very observant. So I looked at the setup of all of the different people that had a crowd around their table. I paid attention to what you shouldn't do at a convention, a comic convention. It's a social event. And the people that kept their head down and they're drawing on their sketchbooks, and people are walking by their table and they may be interested, but because you didn't engage that person, they walk by. So from there, I'm friendly, I'm open. You don't understand the business of what you're doing, it's going to eat you up.
Yes, you mentioned the fact that 17 years ago there was no Kickstarter. We didn't have social media. We didn't have websites and all the things like we do now. But your Kickstarter campaign is legendary. I was just scrolling through my feed one day, and I went, what? And I looked at it. I was so blown away, so impressed, not surprised at all because it is Marcus Williams. However, so tell me about that process.
Okay. I guess I could start at the end of the race, which is we set a goal to do one graphic novel, which was 3 issues of a comic, and we said we need $10,000. The Kickstarter, we did a 30-day campaign, and within 8 hours of hitting the start button, we had $10,000.
Wow. Amazing.
See, when you get to that point, you're like, okay, then, so what now? We introduced our stretch goals from there, and we ended the Kickstarter 30 days later with $74,000. My partner, Greg, is in finance, so we definitely understood that money was going to be exclusively used for the point of production, and some of our stretch goals that we knew were going to be expensive, so we did not touch that. We didn't touch that. We set some prices for ourselves. We paid ourselves for what we were going to embark on, and that includes creating the comic and printing up, and making sure we had what we needed to create the content. And went to our first show, which so happened to be just a small event, but we printed up 100 and sold 100. We just rolled that money back into another print run, did the same thing, and got a bigger print run. To Harlem, which has a black comic festival at the Schomburg, we sold 400 books in a weekend. Comics. 400 comics. $10 a pop. Okay, so rolled all of that money into what we needed to do for future print runs and so forth. So we have allotted the Kickstarter funds. We haven't messed with that. It's still sitting there doing what it does. We use Kickstarter, and I tell a lot of people that are aspiring to do a Kickstarter, it's really a pre-order system. You can gauge your audience. You can test and see if they really want your product. So we had a little over 1,600 backers of the Kickstarter. I think it may be more. But that many people pre-ordered our product. And we ended up saying we're going to do a second graphic novel as a stretch goal. So we're going to do 2 graphic novels now, 6 issues. But it's a great, great system to say, do you want this? And how much of it do you want? We can add some more stuff if you like. If we hit this goal,
okay.
More.
You're right. It's such a great, test market, a way to test an idea. And it is basically making it vivid. It's going through, you start with that big idea, and now you got to back up and make it vivid so that other people can read it and run. And so it sounds like, you've just touched on so many things. The fact that you even had to go beyond just being an illustrator. I love Michael Gerber wrote a book years ago called The E-Myth, and he talked about the fact that, there are individuals at some point in their life, they will have what he called an entrepreneurial seizure, where you say, okay, well, I know how to draw. I'll be an illustrator. I'm going to create a business as an illustrator. And he was saying that, you go in as a technician, not understanding, like you said, not understanding how the business of illustration. So then you have this potential to create a job that's worse than, what you had when you were working for someone else. And so he said it's just so important to build a business that serves your life and not the other way around. And you basically have kind of walked us through that process that you actually lived. And so that's exciting to hear. And it's just cool that, in spite of whatever challenges have come your way, that you were able to just kind of keep set your face like flint, and just keep going. And that's one of the things I say about vision and why it's so important for us to get vision for every area of our lives, is that that vision in front of you is that thing that keeps you going. It's that spark that helps you when you are facing challenges, because that's the other piece. We all think that if life is going well, we're not experiencing challenges, and the reality is it doesn't matter where you are, what stage of life, how much money you have, we all have challenges. So, but vision is that thing that keeps you moving, keeps you going, and so it's thrilling to me that you have found like a greater purpose in the middle of, this gift that you've been given.
Mm-hmm. It's and to say it, and that's absolutely true. Everything you just said. It's the part that I try to tell young artists, and you touched on it just now, which is to say, there absolutely is going to be, pitfalls. There's going to be frustration moments. Life is not going to leave you alone, so you can create this bubble of, perfect alignment with your craft. It's going to come at you at sometimes harder than ever. And I went through a divorce. I took the kids from that, so I was a single father. There was humbling moments where, I had to go live with my mom to help her with my brother, but she was helping me as a single father with my kids as I had to travel sometimes. I had to go out of town and do these things, and I didn't want to leave my kids, just with daycare or any of that mess. So I was very fortunate, but it's still frustrating because me and my mom are two different humans. And, not every relationship is great. Parents. So there was, when I say frustration moments as an adult, it's an understatement, because there were people, saying, how are you doing this? How haven't you had a meltdown? And what do you mean, you're not getting child support? How are you dealing with this? And this. And I'm like, listen, I don't have time to focus my energy on anything negative. I only have enough sanity left in me to put all of my effort, because I get joy from creating. And I didn't realize that was my therapy. It was my own personal, calming down time. If you think of how an artist works, or a musician, a lot of time, you get alone in a quiet space most times, and you actually focus and you look inward for a spark of imagery or creation or inspiration, and then you spend the next hour, 45 minutes to an hour plus, rendering something you're pulling from your own inner space. You're presented with something tangible that you can show other people and say, hey, I just went into myself and I pulled this out. Check it out.
Yes.
It's been in me this whole time, this whole self-repairing factory, this process.
How do we get the Tuskegee Airs?
So put a .com after Tuskegee Airs, and we have a web page that actually we distribute our books for our own publisher, so you can purchase the book from our website.
Well, it has been a delight to have you. So thank you so much for being on Vivid Talk Radio.
Appreciate you all through the years. You were that influence for me business-wise, because you were doing 15 million things. So I love you and I appreciate you, and thank you for influencing me.
Thanks for listening to Vivid Talk Radio, a coaching conversation for visionaries. Today's episode of Vivid Talk Radio is brought to you by Mogul Con, the #1 event where female corporate influencers and women-owned businesses come together. Visit vividtalkradio.com to follow us and make sure you never miss an episode. Join the conversation by speaking your mind, posting your comments, sharing in social media, and tagging @VividBrands. You've been listening to Vivid Talk Radio with Gwen Witherspoon. Join us each Wednesday at 5 p.m. and get vision for every area of life. Visit vividtalkradio.com for more. Until next time, make it vivid.